So Pokemon Scarlet and Violet just released, and you want to know what existing Pokemon didn't make the cut. Let's find out. Hey, what's going on everybody? I'm Stalker25, and today I'm going to be showing you and telling you guys all the existing Pokemon that didn't make it in the Scarlet and Violet, and then towards the end of the video, I'm going to give you guys my kind of top 15 Pokemon species, families, that I would like to make it into the game, whether it be DLC or some form. As you guys know, the Pokedex is a pretty controversial thing, starting with Pokemon Sword and Shield Generation 8 on the Switch. Game Freak decided to cut the ever-loving and, almost always existing National Dex out of the game. And with that, we lost a lot of Pokemon. Now we have base Pokedex games of 400, with almost 100 of them being new, and only 300 old Pokemon. And with about 1,000 Pokemon now existing, that's a lot of people's favorite Pokemon sometimes that just don't make the cut. So, who didn't make it this time around? Well, we do have a little bit of stuff that we need to talk about first. There are some Pokemon that are in the game right now that are transfer only. I'm going to show them on screen right now, and there's a glaring elephant in the room. Big orange dragon. Charizard. We know he is coming on, I believe, December 1st for the first ever 7-star Terra Raid Battle event. So you'll be able to get Charizard. There's also 2 more Pokemon that aren't on this list that I didn't put on here because they are obtainable in game. That's Galarian Meowth and Berserker, and also Johto Wooper and Quagsire. They're obtainable in-game through trades, so they're not here on this list. But everybody else in this list is transfer only. You got Raichu's, like all the Alolan forms, all the Hisuian forms. I think we got maybe a Galarian form or 2 in there. We got the Galarian birds. We got some returning legendaries and, some fan favorites that have not made their debut on the Switch yet, being Greninja and, the rest of the Kalos starters and stuff like that. Those guys have not been on the Switch at all. They have been locked out since Ultra Sun and Moon from being a playable Pokemon, which is really unfortunate because a lot of people love Greninja, and I think Ultra Sun and Moon was, correct me if I'm wrong, 2015 or 16. I don't remember the exact year. Could even have been 17. I'm a little rusty on that knowledge, didn't look it up beforehand. So, with that being said, these are the only transfer-only Pokemon that we have right now, that we know of. So who's still missing that isn't in the game? Well, Generation 1. There are 113 total Pokemon that are not in the game out of 150. I didn't look up the list of all the other generations. I only know Gen 1 has 150 new Pokemon. The rest of them I don't really know, so forgive me, but Gen 1 is 151 that did not make it into the game. All these on screen right now. Quite unfortunate. Charizard's getting love over Bulbasaur and Blastoise again, but with hope they will come out in the DLC as well. Bulbasaur was rumored in, I believe, a data mine that a trainer potentially had him coded into them, but he's not in the game and he's not in transfer only, so there's hope maybe Bulbasaur's line would come, and if Bulbasaur's coming into the game, obviously Squirtle should be coming too, but you never know. They were weird with Legends Arceus. They took some Gen 2, 5, and 7 starters and made them as a new trio. So, there's your Gen 1 that didn't make it into the game. Now here's Gen 2. We got 57 old Pokemon that didn't make it in. Now, if you don't want to count BDSP, there are more Pokemon on this list that have not made it onto the Switch at all. If BDSP is not your, flavor of game, since it just kind of existed and it didn't have a competitive online game, and and you haven't been able to see these Pokemon in a newer, updated form, and speaking of these games, we do have a lot of Pokemon now with new textures and stuff like that, and the models are coming differently and stuff like that, and maybe you want to see some old favorites with a new fur texture, a new metallic texture, stuff like that. We'll get into that a little bit later in the video, but this is all your Gen 2 that didn't make it. Some big ones to note: both the starters are not making it. Typhlosion is, because apparently he's, he was a Hisuian starter, so he makes the cut. But you also have the legendary dogs, well, not dogs. You have the legendary beast, Everyone calls them legendary dogs. I personally call them the beasts, the cats. You got them, you got the other birds. There are some Johto Pokemon that didn't make it here, some of which were in Sword and Shield, some of which were obviously BDSP, and also Legends Arceus. These all did exist there. But we do also have to note, we haven't had a Gen 2 remake in quite some time, so who knows if that is on the horizon somewhere, being a Let's Go, a Legend style, or something else. Now, Gen 3, 90 Pokemon are not making the cut. Now, a lot of these Pokemon were obtainable in Sword and Shield. The rest of these were obtainable in BDSP. BDSP did allow all generations 1 through 4 Pokemon in the game. So, but it's a little bit different playing a Pokemon that's a faithful remake than an all-new generation with some of these Pokemon. So, some of these, I don't know if Plusle and Minun, for example, were allowed in Sword and Shield. I don't believe they were. So you have some like that haven't technically been in a Switch game outside of BDSP. I'm sure there's some more on here. I don't know off the top of my head who all hasn't been on here. A lot of these guys were Sword and Shield, and a lot of them were Sword and Shield Crown Tundra DLC. So, moving on to Gen 4. We only got 52 Pokemon that didn't make the cut this time. Unfortunately, the starters, Turtwig, Chimchar, and Piplup did not make it into here, which is quite unfortunate, knowing that they were only allowed in BDSP and then Legends Arceus as well, which Legends Arceus didn't have an online play, so you couldn't battle any of your friends with it, or online competitive, and BDSP also did not have a competitive online, stuff like that, for anyone that is interested in that, or just wants to play with these these Pokemon in this kind of setting. Now next up, Generation 5, and this is a big one. So Gen 4 is 52 Pokemon. Now, I do want to touch back on Generation 1 really quick. Generation 1 had 113 missing Pokemon. And that was 151 new Pokemon that 150 Pokemon Gen 1 had. Generation 5 has 119 Pokemon, the greatest number on this list of Pokemon that did not make it into these games. Now, a lot of these Pokemon were available in Sword and Shield. But we do have some Pokemon on this list that we will get into later that have not been on the Switch at all. And with Black and White and Black and White 2 being relatively old games now, and coming up on times for remakes possibly next year or the year after, whether that be some sort of virtual console, hopefully not a faithful remake, hopefully an all-new 3D re-adventuring of the games, because Black and White were some pretty ugly games with the thick black borders around everything on there, and they were the first attempt at like 3D-ing the environment a little bit with like how they made the cities more rounded and stuff like that. So I think Unova could really benefit from, honestly, a Legends game. I think you could go on and do the proper original Dragon before all three separated, like what it originally looked like. And then you could, do an actual Black and White remake. But do you do a Black and White 1 remake? A Black and White 2 remake? Do you do both back to back? How do you handle that? Let me know in the comments below what you guys would want for that. But this is all Generation 5 that didn't make it into the game. Quite a lot. Now Generation 6, only 31. But Generation 6 wasn't a lot of new Pokemon, if we're being honest. I think it was somewhere between 60 and 80 new Pokemon, maybe 90 tops, but I think it was like 60-ish. But you got the Legendaries, another generation where none of its Legendaries make it, besides the Mythicals, are in the transfer-only category. But a lot of Pokemon here, the Fossils specifically, which I don't know how any Fossils didn't make it into this game with a whole pass setting. Really kind of weird to me, but whatever. Then we got Generation 7, 59, quite a big number, all the Ultra Beasts, all the Legendaries. I think the only one allowed in here is Magearna. All the starters besides Decidueye, because he, got broken away and now he's in a new trio as well. But you got all these guys that didn't make it. I know a lot of people are bothered by Incineroar in the competitive play, but I would have loved to have seen Incineroar with the new, fur texture that they've given Pokemon. I think he would have looked pretty good with that. And there's some other ones on here with the scale texture and stuff like that, or rocky texture, that they would look pretty good. And now Generation 8. The newest game came out in, was it 2019? I think it was 2019 when Gen 8 came out with Galar. We only have 29 Pokemon that didn't make it. Not the biggest deal, but, you know, maybe a couple on here are some of your favorites. I know I have a favorite on this list. So with all that being said, we have a lot of Pokemon. In total, how many didn't make it from previous generations? Now, we do have Galarian forms in there. We have Hisuian forms. We have other things. So this isn't the full list. Like, this is if you add all those as individual Pokemon. I'm not counting Arceus forms. I'm not counting Vivian forms. I'm only counting things that add a definitive second, like, type Pokemon, like a separate entity itself. Not just a form change because of an item like Shaman or something like that. I'm counting actual, like, different species, essentially, even though it's the same, kind of. But we have a total of 550 missing Pokemon from this game. So it's a lot. We got a lot of Pokemon out in here. Only 400 in the game. Only, what was it, 297 that were old that exist again. So we got a lot of Pokemon that are in here. So, quick last thing before we move on to my top 15 most wanted list. We have these Pokemon right here. 26 Pokemon that are still not available on the Switch by any means. They are stuck in Pokemon Home hell, and they are never allowed out if you've transferred them in. Unfortunately, that's the case with Furfrou is Pokemon Home, if you were trying to do a living form dex, you cannot obtain any of Furfrou's different forms unless you play Pokemon Go and transfer them in from there, which kind of sucks. So Furfrou is a much needed Pokemon on the Switch, and we have a lot of these other ones that haven't been available anywhere. And it's quite unfortunate that all these are unavailable, but harking back to something before, look at a lot of the Pokemon on this list here. Almost the majority of this list, besides 5 Pokemon, are Generation 5 Pokemon from Unova. So there's a lot here. And then we got the 119 that aren't in the game. Granted, a lot of them were in Sword and Shield, but it leads me to believe that we do have a Black and White remake coming for the Switch somewhere, or it's coming maybe the next console if the Switch gets a successor soon here. But that's it for there. We got a lot of Pokemon that didn't make it, and it's unfortunate. And I know a lot of people think that the Pokedex issues aren't that big of a deal. You shouldn't expect to capture every Pokemon in the game. But up until Generation 7, we were always allowed to transfer in whatever we wanted at any point in time. Even if they lock it behind the post-game, just being able to have those Pokemon accessible from Pokemon Home into your game for team building for replay throughs, because maybe you don't want to use all the 400 that are in the game. You want to use some little different ones in a different region in a different setting. I think that's a thing that a lot of people don't think about sometimes, and they just think, oh, well, it doesn't matter, and some people might want to use these Pokemon online, and they might say, well, these Pokemon are always available online in previous meta games and stuff like that. And I think that comes down to Pokemon needs to start creating different playlists for online for their competitive mode, where just certain Pokemon are just banned out of it in different playlists, so then you have different metas that could form and stuff like that. I don't play competitive, honestly, in Pokemon. I've tried it a couple times, but I haven't really gotten heavily into it, even though I do breed Pokemon and do stuff like that. But I'm personally a collector, and these are 15 species here that I really want to see make it into Scarlet and Violet. I think Scarlet and Violet are pretty great games in terms of the gameplay and the way that the Pokemon look themselves. Now granted, yes, Pokemon models, sometimes you see the polygons when the battle loads, but when you see that full new model, and I'm going to show some on screen right now, but when you see that full new model of what the new textures look like on, let's say, Seviper and Ursaring and Camerupt and some other ones that are in here, and even new metallic textures like with Scizor and with Magneton, these Pokemon look phenomenal. They don't look plasticky anymore. They look like they exist in this world, and that's something that Pokemon has been severely lacking for, ever since they become 3D. They always look plasticky, rubbery, just made of Play-Doh. And these are 15 Pokemon that I think either we don't have them on the Switch yet, or they're ones that we haven't had in a proper Switch game besides BDSP, or even if we had them in Sword and Shield and stuff like that. I think they would look phenomenal with this new texture style, that Pokemon and Game Freak has started to use, and I hope that they continue doing this going forward with these Pokemon, where they start adjusting all the other 550 Pokemon that haven't made it onto the Switch. So eventually we could get that National Dex back in, like, let's say Generation 10 or 11 or something like that, and all the Pokemon have their new models, they have their new animations. But let's get into the top 15 that I got here. Number 15 that I got, this is just one of my personal favorites in Galar, is Bolton. His line with the Emperor. Both these two, really like them. I think they look great with the new fur texture. That's all I really have to say about them. 14, we got Absol. Another one that would look great with the fur texture. Also, I got a shiny one in Sword and Shield, and I would love to look at it in its proper glory and attempt to use it into this game and just see how it could actually look. Another one that benefits from the new metallic texture, number 13, the Aegislash line with Hone Edge, Dewblade, all of them, the whole line. I think they would look awesome with the new metallics. You make the sword super shiny, some nice little shiny gold bits and other things, a new maybe cloth texture for the ribbons on it, because we've seen the cloth texture on trainer clothing and it looks phenomenal. And I think that they would look really good in this game as well. Now, number 12, we got Zebstrika. Has not been on the Switch yet. Another one that would look great, like Mudsdale, would look really good with the new fur texture. Don't have to go overboard with it, but you could even make the maybe like the white spikes on its back. I don't know if they lit up before, but you could make them light up. Have the new illuminating eyes that they have with the new games, like style that they have, where there's like a little bit of light coming like off the eyes so they don't look completely like flat anymore. Zebstrika would be great for number 12 that I would want. Now number 11, this is another personal old favorite of mine, with the new rocky texture, the new metallic texture, the new gem style texture. I think Staryu and Starmie would be awesome in this game. I don't know how good they are competitively, but none of these Pokemon are really on here in terms of like competitive nature. But yeah, I just like these two personally a lot. Now number 10, we got Furfrou. It's not a crazy Pokemon as far as I'm aware in competitive. It might be good, but as a collector standpoint and someone who wants to get that full living dex done, I would like Furfrou just to get into a a Switch mainline game where you could get it and then send it to Pokemon Home. Because, I mean, there's no way for me to do all this in Pokemon Go because I don't want to play that much Pokemon Go. Alright, number 9. This is kind of cheating a little bit, but I got all 3 Regis. Technically, you could put Regigigas on here too, because Regieleki and Regidrago are apparently transfer available Pokemon when Pokemon Home becomes available. Probably because they're newer, they didn't see much, competitive play because they didn't have that long in the metagame, so maybe Game Freak wants to give them some extra time to shine. But with the new shiny metallic textures, the new possible textures that Ice Pokemon haven't paid enough attention to like Avalog and stuff like that, and the really nice new rock textures, I think these 3 could be completely remodeled, completely retextured, and I think they would look like some of the coolest Pokemon in the entire game if they were given a little bit of TLC that they, deserve, being old classic favorites for a lot of people. Now another one that benefits, number 8, benefits greatly from the Rocky and Steel textures. We got Onix and Steelix here. 2 of my favorite Pokemon. I've always loved Onix. He's not good by any means, not great. He's pretty trash, but Steelix is awesome, and I've always loved Steelix. So, number 7, we got Gliscor and Gligar. Another all-time favorite of mine was denied access into Sword and Shield, unfortunately, but did get time in BDSP and Legends Arceus, and I did like him in Legends Arceus, even though I didn't use him really in there, because I already had a lot of other Pokemon I was using at the time, and I planned on getting one eventually. I really want to use him again, and potentially even use him online with, this game, because I might try to play competitive in this game. And I know he's relatively good, as far as I'm aware, but I would like to use him again in a new journey on the Switch for the first time, in a brand new region that's not Sinnoh. Alright, this one, number 6, Feraligatr. Technically, you could put Meganium on here too. I don't want to add too many Pokemon on screen at the same time and edit a ton of pictures together, but the Feraligatr line is one of my favorite starter lines, and I think with the new scale textures, if they want to apply it here, They could apply him here, maybe even some new Rocky style textures on like the little armbands and the knee pads on Feraligatr. But I think if you did texture him up just enough, he would look pretty good. But it's been a long time since we've been allowed to use him. BDSP doesn't count for me on this one. He has not been in the game for a long time, and I want to use him again, whether it be here or a Doto remake of some sort, but I personally would like him in both. But Feraligatr, that's my number 6. Number 5, another metal texture that we could see that I think would look really good, a mix of metal and rocky texture, is the Aggron line. This is one of my favorite lines out of Hoenn, one of my favorite Pokemon in the whole series. Probably at least in my top 20. I know I did a list a while back of my like top 20 favorite Pokemon, or top 10 if you want to check it out. It's somewhere. But I really like Aggron. I think it could benefit greatly from being in this game. I think he'd be a fun playthrough Pokemon, and just one I really want to see again. Alright, number 4. Kind of not a crazy one. I know he's not very good, but I would like to see Arbok. I've seen what Seviper looks like. I've seen what Rayquaza looks like from the leaked pictures online. I think Arbok, our original Snaky Boy, deserves to have that new scaly texture. He would look so dang good, especially if you want to go all out and do the different like different patterns on the chest, head, crest, whatever it's called. I don't remember the name. I'm blanking on it. I'm not familiar with snake biology and stuff like that. But I think Arbok would look awesome in this game. I really want to see him in it because it's been a long time. BDSP doesn't count. Again, he hasn't been on the game on the Switch, I guess, since Let's Go, which another game that I don't really count because I didn't want to play it, honestly. Alright, number 3. We got the Electivire line. I think all these guys from the fur texture would look pretty good. I really like Electivire. He's one of my favorite Pokemon, again, and one of my favorite out of Sinnoh. And yes, we had him in Sword and Shield. Yes, we had him in BDSP, I think. I don't even remember if he was in there. And yes, we had him in, I believe, Legends Arceus. But I want him here, too. I sad that he's not here, because I think he would look awesome with this new style. See what Ursaring looks like. I know he can look that way, too, and I really want him in here. Alright, number 2. One of my favorite Unova Pokemon, Golurk. Another one that would look so cool just roaming around Paldea. The cool rocky texture, the glow of the runes and the chest and the eyes on him would look so good. Especially if you've seen him sometimes just rocketing around and they gave him a little like fire particle effect or something like that. I doubt the game could handle it because performance issues are a plague on this game. But it'd be really cool to see Golurk just roaming around. Especially if you counted him as like past or a future Pokemon, or even did a Paradox future version of him. I think he would look sick, especially in DLC. If like a DLC gave us past and future versions of some of these Pokemon, Golurk is one of my instants that I would love to see get a future version for Violet as an exclusive. You can make the normal one a Scarlet exclusive because he's pretty ancient looking as is, but Golurk is one I really want. Alright, and last but not least, my number 1 most wanted Pokemon line in this game is Metagross. Or Metagross, however you pronounce it. I pronounce it Metagross. But, I really want this one in here. The metallic texture on the silver bits on him throughout the Beldum line would look awesome. Give the eyes a nice glowing red like some of the Pokemon have, like a little ambient glow behind them. Would look sick. You go one of 2 routes with the blue. You go full on metallic with the blue, or you go a stony texture, but still make it have a little bit of shine to it. Almost every other pseudo legendary Pokemon is in this game besides Kommo-o and Metagross. As far as I can remember, I think everybody else is in. So why'd these 2 get cut? I'm pretty sure they were both available in Sword and Shield. Metagross was available by the time of Crown Tundra, but that's not enough time to play with them. I didn't get to use them that much. I didn't get them in Legends Arceus. BDSP, again, to me, does not count. I want him in this game. I think he would look so good. And with that, that's it for me. Those are my top 15 Pokemon that I would like to see in this game. I think the no national dex, personally, has been a very upsetting thing ever since it was announced with Sword and Shield that it was not a thing anymore. Personally, I hate when Pokemon removes core features of the games that have been long-term running, I still am not over the fact that Mega Evolution is not back in the game. After it was in Generation 6 and 7, I think it's a shame that they get rid of these gimmicks. If you don't want them to be allowed online for competitive, just don't allow them online. It's that easy just to code it into the game and be like, hey, this Pokemon's not available in this mode, but you can still use it in battles online against your friends, not in competitive. You can still use it in the game at the post game or something like that. I just think it's really unfortunate that they remove these things, especially the fact that we have so many Pokemon. It was 550 that are not allowed in these games out of the Pokedex. There's got to be at least somebody's favorite in there. I know several of mine aren't in. Charizard, Blaziken, Darkrai, Metagross. Darkrai's another one I'd love to have. There are plenty of honorable mentions I can put in this video, but I don't want this video to be a half an hour like it's almost going to be. So, with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. I plan on doing some Pokemon videos in the near future that I want to do. I am recording this currently on November 24th, 2022. So, we're almost a week away from the game being out. Hopefully, it gets some more performance patches soon. But that's going to do it for me today. Everybody, let me know in the comments below. Out of all the Pokemon that you just seen today in this video, what are some of your most wanted that you want in this generation that aren't in yet? Hopefully yet. But as well as that, if you did find this video, enjoyable by any means, I would always appreciate a like as well as a subscribe if you're new. It does help me a lot. I do greatly appreciate it. I also got a second channel if you want to check it out. I do action figure reviews over there. If that's your thing, you could always go in the description. I got the links down there if you want to check that out, as well as Twitter, even though that's kind of a dumpster fire right now in general. If you do want to follow me over there, I do post some stuff every once in a while. So thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you all in the next video.